Welcome to the latest instalment in our webinar series. In this replay, you'll learn how circularity can unlock economic and environmental benefits for your construction projects. Let's get into it.
Welcome to this webinar on accessing the ISC credits for Project Circularity. I'm Jim Goddin. I'm the Head of Circular Economy at thinkstep-anz. I've got the great pleasure today to be joined by Steve Morris, Ben Wade and James Braham from Close the Loop, ISC and Downer. And we'll be taking you through this session. Hopefully you'll find it useful and informative. So the running order for today is I'm going to take you through a brief background into what circularity metrics are. I'll then hand over to Ben, who'll talk you through the ISC credits. And then we'll hear from Steve and James, who'll take us through the benefits of the MCI from their perspectives and their experience and what benefits they've seen come through from that. And then we'll finish up with the Q&A at the end. So I'm just going to briefly take you through circularity metrics, why we need them and how they work. This is, I guess, a new area for quite a few people. And it'll come as no surprise that there are various reasons for measuring circularity. Firstly, we can't improve what we don't measure. So we need circularity metrics for design, for benchmarking existing products, for evaluating our performance, and for communicating to a general audience about the circularity of our products. We also need circularity metrics to enable us to optimize the benefits of circularity, and these include the economic, environmental, and social benefits that we're seeking to deliver through the circular economy. And we need to understand circularity in that perspective so we can understand the trade-offs where those exist. Now, the challenge with circularity is one of comparability. The circular economy has multiple levers, whether that's designing out materials, using regenerative biomaterials, extending the service life of a product through durability-based approaches, having a shared use products, so using products more intensively, reuse, remanufacturing, refurbishment, recycling, composting, energy recovery. And all of those ways of delivering circularity are measured differently, which makes it very difficult to combine different forms of circularity and to compare different circular economy approaches. Within that, there are some circular approaches that are also more circular than others, and we need a way of being able to elevate and reflect that within circularity metrics. We also have the danger of tunnel vision. One of the things we've seen is, because we have already well-established recycling-based metrics, if those are the only metrics we use and use to communicate, then recycling will tend to be the only solution that we get. So we need to start changing the way we talk about the circular economy and using circularity metrics as a way of communicating. Now, in the context of this, we also have a series of new standards that have been published this July, one of which is ISO 59004, which sets out the principles for a circular economy. Within this standard and within the 6 principles that are outlined there, the need for circularity metrics comes through in each of those principles. So whether it's for design and development, procurement and sourcing, policy and regulatory compliance, we're seeing more circular economy oriented regulations coming through globally, or just understanding how we're handling our resources, how we're dealing with traceability over our circularity claims, and how we're delivering risk management and resilience in the context of ecosystem resilience. We're seeing these metrics come through. And in fact, there's a sister standard to this, which is have I frozen? I'm going to hope not. There we are. There is a sister standard called ISO 59020, which is now the umbrella standard for how we go about quantifying the level of circularity within systems. Now, there is an alignment between ISO 59020 and the material circularity indicator that we're going to discuss today. The ISO standard defines the indicators that are relevant to circularity calculations, whereas the MCI takes those indicators and turns them into a single metric through a calculation that is part of an open source methodology. Now, the material circularity indicator itself started development in 2013. We first published that methodology in 2015. In 2019, we saw the update to that, which included biological material flows. And just this year, we published a small addendum to the methodology that enables the MCI to be calculated as a percentage, which aids communication. Throughout that development process, there's been a broad range of stakeholders from business community, from investors, universities, government bodies, regulators, NGOs. So it really has been quite a large team effort to put this methodology together. The way to think about the MCI is it brings together 3 components. Firstly, the material inflows, so where materials are coming from into the product. The material outflows on the other side, so where those materials are going to. And in the middle, what happens to it in terms of the durability or the utility, or whether it's been lightweighted versus a reference product. So the inflows and outflows really talk to that reduction of reliance on non-renewable resources and waste production, whereas the product use through durability and lifetime extension talk about avoidance. How do we avoid the need for introducing new materials into our economy? What you get out of that is a single metric that ranges from linear to circular, so either 0% for a linear product, so 100% for a fully circular product. In the old methodology, you might hear us talking about 0.1 to 1, which is the original scale, but that essentially relates to 0 to 100% circular. And the MCI can be applied to either products or projects. So we can quantify the circularity of individual components, or we can take the circularity of multiple components and use those to evaluate the circularity of a project. And that was part of the original intent. You can access a free calculator for the MCI on our website. It is important within the context of that to think about verification or validation of your results, because we're making claims about the circularity of these products. Why am I having a... Right. There are other examples of MCI in use. One of the early examples was actually through InfraBuild, who published the circularity of their products alongside their EPD. And I believe this is an ongoing exercise to incorporate the MCI alongside EPDs, and I think this is something we'll see more of. And we've also seen the incorporation of MCI in the draft Green Star for buildings version 1.1. So we'll see hopefully a greater use of MCI and other circularity metrics as we go forward as a way of reporting and standardizing the reporting of circularity. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Ben to take over and to lead the next session.
Thanks, Jim. Just going to share screen.
Fantastic. You can see that.
Howdy, everyone. So my name is Ben Wade. I'm one of the regional leads at ISC, currently working mostly in the New Zealand market, but have been with ISC for the last 5 years now. I'm not going to pretend I was well informed on the topic of circularity as probably the rest of the panelists here, but I will endeavor to go through kind of our credits and our technical manual very, very briefly and provide a bit of an overview as to currently, I guess, where circularity is embedded into some of those credits, as well as sort of the direction we're going with one of the innovation challenges that we've got, and how that's tied to the use of MCIs, and obviously how the direction that's sort of taking us in the future. So I'd just like to quickly start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet. So for me, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and tēnā koutou katoa to any of New Zealand attendees that are online. So ISC's credits in our technical manual, we consider circularity in a couple of different ways. So this is primarily looking at our version 2.1 tool here, which includes planning, design and as-built, and our small projects tool, IS Essentials, which you may not be aware of. But the structure and focus areas very similar in our version 1.2 design and as-built tool, which others may be using still. We just have slightly different credit names. So firstly, we've got our RSO 4 and RSO 5 credits. These are more specific to components of a circular economy, I guess, or a circularity, if you will, and very much looking at the RSO 4, the diversion of resource outputs or waste, for a simpler term, from landfill. And so looking to put those into kind of recoverable streams and divert those from landfill. And then for RSO 5 is our asset adaptability and end of life credit. So very much looking at planning and designing for the end of life, designing for asset adaptability as a whole, as well as asset deconstruction and separability into recyclable waste streams. So very much, I guess, credits focusing on a specific component or phase of I guess, circularity. We then have our ISO 1, 6, and Res 2 credits, which are kind of your upfront planning, efficient material usage kind of at a higher level. So while not specific to circularity, they subsequently reward the outcomes for implementing circular initiatives. Which ultimately lead to the more efficient use of materials. Res 2 might stand out there as a bit of an interesting inclusion. It's a really, really cool credit, and perhaps not one that, it springs to mind when you think about circularity and material efficiency. So this is our asset resilience planning credit, and it looks at the dependency of assets on the material supply chain to maintain operations through their useful design life. And so then obviously that is identified as a risk or a vulnerability. And so that credit very much encourages the implementation of kind of circular thinking and initiatives, and even within the asset itself, kind of circular practices to kind of be self-sufficient, if you will, with the materials and the resources that it has, and planning to kind of operate that way where possible. So a different perspective, but obviously one that's very relevant to the same topic. We then have our innovation challenge that I mentioned before, and this is one that's been floating around for a few years now. So I think it was initially published in 2022. And so work started as a bit of a collaboration between what was then the Federal Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment. I believe that's now been blown into two different departments. So that was in response to sort of federal policy at the time around, again, probably like Jim said, prioritizing the use of recycled materials and in our assets, and it sort of starts the and I'll show this in a moment. The innovation challenge sort of starts its focus that way, with rewarding projects for their ability to implement materials with recycled content in their initial design and construction. It then sort of goes a bit of a step further and looks to. It was basically an initial assessment to understand market capability and using MCIs and how the uptake of them, the feasibility of kind of expanding that, and very much us trying to understand. And as Jim said before, probably looking to see if it's something that can follow the path of EPDs, which has obviously been hugely successful and really helped with our LCA tool usage. So that was kind of an initial test that we put out and rewarded projects helping develop and using MCIs on their projects. Admittedly, uptake of that component has been slow over the first couple of years, but as of the last year, I'd say maybe just less, we've seen a rapid change in the way that that's been received, and sort of a lot of interest sort of coming to the table on MCIs and where we have opportunities to use them. And so what that means for ISC, obviously, is that's providing us an indication of perhaps, whilst we've got sort of high level inclusion of circular economy kind of thinking in some of our credits, perhaps there's capability in the future to kind of incorporate MCIs, similar to, as we've seen there, Green Star already making draft credits heading in that direction as well. So that's sort of the way that's pointing, and sort of us testing that thinking. So just a very quick last thing for me. So this is just a little screenshot of the Contributing to Circular Economy Innovation Challenge. So you can see at the top there, up to 3 points rewarded for the use of recycled materials beyond what we've set as business as usual levels based on historic project data. And then the optional items at the bottom of the table there, projects are awarded for demonstrating responsible management resource outputs, then also using materials with MCI and helping suppliers develop an MCI. And so, as I said, this is an area that's been getting a bit more of attention and a bit more interest as of late, which is very exciting. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll give you a little bit of a background as to how Downer and Close the Loop came to the idea of an MCI in the first place, and Ben's alluded to that. The primary driver was the fact that we realized that we could be rewarded by undertaking the process of measuring Reconophalt, including tonoplast via MCI. Tonoplast is an asphalt additive made from recycled plastic. And like most polymers used in roads, it improves the performance of that asphalt asset. But how did it improve the circularity of Reconophalt was the big question that we wanted to ask, and wasn't being directly addressed by the use of an EPD, which Downer has for all of their mixed designs, by the way, to their great credit. If I back a little bit, I'm the founder of Close the Loop, which is one division of the new Close the Loop group. We're primarily a product stewardship company, a circular economy company, have been for 25 years, and was founded somewhat naively, I've got to admit now, on the brand promise of zero waste to landfill. Now, that brand promise has driven a lot of innovation at Close the Loop, and one of those innovations is tonoplast. Because we have grown over the journey to be the largest collector and recycler of imaging supplies in the world, we needed to fulfill our brand promise and have a high-value solution for waste toner powder, which is polymer that is very beneficial to the performance modification of asphalt. So it's been a 14-year overnight success, this Tonoplast journey. And thanks to the true essence of circularity, or transitioning to circularity, it can only be done in collaboration. And I still believe that. Without the collaboration of Downer and the strong support from Downer along the way, there would be no Tonoplast to this day. So as far as venturing on an MCI, I picked up the phone and I said to my friends at Downer, here's an opportunity for us to get more ISC points, because I suppose one of the highlights of the Tonoplast and not Reconophalt, but the Tonoplast journey to this date is the fact that we were involved in two major road projects in Victoria recently. One is the M80 freeway upgrade, and the other one is the Monash freeway upgrade, both using Tonoplast in Reconophalt, and in the case of the M80 freeway upgrade, in partnership with CPD contractors. And knowing that we have a strong interest in continuing the use of Reconophalt on the Northeast Link, this turned into a bit of a sales pitch, I'm sorry, but on the Northeast Link project, we knew that it was very important for us to measure and have verified the circularity of Reconophalt, including Tonoplast. So, to then be speaking to Jim, and then realizing that some of the value that we got, and we did get value, I don't know, Jim, if you're going to go into it, but the standard, shall we say, base level of any product is an MCI of 1. And we achieved better than that. We achieved an MCI of 0.86. And one of the great benefits out of this whole project is that we now know what to do to further improve the circularity or the MCI rating of our product. One of the things that really interested me was this is a tool that values longevity of an asset. If we look at the 3 pillars of a circular economy in simple terms, and now as head of circular economy for the Close the Loop group, which listed on the ASX in 2021. So as head of circular economy of the Close the Loop group now, I explain this transition to circularity in 3 easy pillars. The first one being designing out waste. And design, as you know, is a huge part of any infrastructure project. The second pillar of a circular economy, and the one that's relevant here, is that we keep products and materials in circulation for as long as possible. So in the case of plastics, and due to legacy issues of products not yet being designed for longevity, we end up with a lot of raw materials at the recycling stage, and those atoms and molecules, it's critical that we keep those in circulation, either offsetting fossil fuel derived non-renewable bitumen or offsetting the use of virgin polymers in the case of polymer modified binders. It's really important for us to do that. And the third pillar of our transition to circularity is regeneration. So we want to create regenerative projects, like, for example, planting trees is a very obvious one, but regenerating human well-being as well, regenerating soils, regenerating the cities and communities that we live in. This one, back to the Material Circularity Index, the longevity that we can receive, and has been proven by using Tonoplast in asphalt, demonstrates an improved fatigue life, which is a very favourable element to our Material Circularity Index rating. And the other big one that's favourable in this particular project is, the potential for avoiding the use of non-renewable resources. But today I'm here mainly to join in dialogue with you, and that is in the form of Q&A. So I'll say goodbye for now, but certainly be very active when it comes to the Q&A section. With you, James.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jim. So my name's James. I'm the Group GM for Environment Sustainability at Downer. I'm sitting in for Dale Thomas. Dale's on leave at the moment, but he probably deserves a lot of the credit and has been involved with the development of Reconophalt over the years, and the EPDs, and now the MCIs. But just from a Downer point of view, kind of repeating what Jim and Steve have already said, the appeal of an MCI for our Reconophalt product is what an MCI does, like EPDs do, it creates a consistent benchmark that we can all measure our products against going forward. And while we might be some of the first to go through this process, I'm sure it'll grow in popularity over time. And, you know, to have a sort of scientific review of your product in this way actually enables us to look at our product through a new lens. So we're not just looking at sort of crude metrics like how much recycled content is in there, but like Steve mentioned, the increased durability that Reconophalt provides is actually helping our circularity score. And we're able to see this through the MCI process. So massive benefit is getting a whole new lens on your products and looking at them and their attributes in a different way. You know, you're not just looking at emissions, for example, or social impact. You know, you're looking at another attribute and down to the materials we use, how we manufacture it, how it performs on its asset. That obviously all impacts the score. And, you know, there was some learnings from the outputs of the MCI report, gave us a great insight to our product that we didn't have before. So I think the other sort of opportunity there is this is a score and a report like an EPD that helps us market our material, helps us demonstrate that we're trying to be leaders in the sustainability space. We're not just saying it through sales talk. We've actually got, you know, figures and facts to back it up. And the process through ISC with the innovation points that Ben mentioned is also another reason why we wanted to push on and develop this MCI. And Ben, you might correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we sought a clarification with ISC around Reconophalt specifically, that if you're using Reconophalt that has an MCI associated with it, then you actually get 0.5 innovation points for that usage. And that's not something that, like most innovation points, only last for the year. It's ongoing for now anyway. So I just sort of give that clarification as well. But yeah, I think that's most of the points I wanted to touch on. Great insight into our product, and we really got a lot of our points from the durability aspects of Reconophalt, which wasn't a surprise, but we were so focused on the recycled content that it was a great insight. And yeah, it's been a good process. I think going forward, we're looking to develop a tool that essentially enables us to give a specific MCI score depending on your mix and specification that you want to develop, the wrap content, etc. So yeah, it's looking pretty exciting going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, James, and pretty much on time. So we got a good amount of time to cover some questions. Just having a look at the Q&A. Do feel free to add additional questions if you'd like us to address them. I guess the first one we've seen come through is really probably for you, Ben, in terms of, you know, is ISC considering an expansion of its approach to incorporate more holistic circular economy principles beyond the traditional focus on recycling and recycled materials? I guess from an MCI perspective, we already have that holistic view because we can incorporate lots of different ways of delivering circularity beyond recycling and recycled materials. But do you see a broader uptake of those more holistic approaches?
Yeah, perhaps my sort of presentation earlier maybe wasn't concise enough. I think we already have a number of credits that do look at sort of a lot of aspects beyond just the incorporation of recycled materials and recycling materials. I think, you know, particularly when you look at that upfront design, sort of the decision making in the design phase and sort of designing for that full asset life cycle and sort of the maintenance and repairs that's going to be required through that life cycle. A lot of that thinking is already incorporated into the LCA credits. Going forward, I think there's big opportunity on the table to sort of use MCIs. It's just a matter of how we can do that in a way that's accessible for projects, and, you know, assuming that we get sort of that uptake of these MCIs as a more broadly used tool, like we see with EPDs, which has been, as I said before, phenomenally successful. So yeah, it's on the table. I think we've got a bit more than just recycled materials in there now. But yeah, there's obviously still room to grow.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something that really came through from James as well in terms of the opportunity to factor into circularity the additional durability of products, which is one of those areas that has certainly can have a disproportionate impact on circularity. Now, this next question, I guess, is probably for both James and potentially also for Ben, in terms of whether the MCI reports will be public documents. Ben, maybe you could comment on that from your perspective in terms of the level of visibility that ISC expects, and James, from your own expectations in terms of the publication of these figures and the supporting information that goes behind them.
Happy to go first. It's obviously the position we sit in is interesting. We get given a lot of information from a lot of projects. Currently, that's sort of largely held between ISC and the projects, and we sort of anything that's used externally, there's a level of anonymity that comes with that. However, transparency is a huge part of what we're trying to drive and what we're trying to encourage. I mean, there's a lot of discussion, particularly when it comes to our base case credits, around what we can do to encourage transparency in that area. So it's the way that we deal with data and the way that we projects submit in the future. Potentially there's discussions there about how transparent and how sort of publicly accessible we should be making these bits of information, because obviously that's a big contributor to what we're trying to drive. We're trying to avoid greenwashing. We're trying to make sure that people are being upfront and clear with what they're claiming. So it's not a conversation we'd shy away from.
Yeah, tend to agree with Ben there. I think if we want uptake of these products and then we need to disclose this information, like I said before, that's the evidence and the science that backs up what we're saying. So the challenge for us is, there's potentially sensitive information in there about our secret cake mix, and it's we can't have that out in the public lens. But I think there's a way that we can produce a report and make it publicly available that tells the story and gives the right facts without disclosing sensitive information. So that's something that is kind of high priority on the list. Yeah, but for me, you can't just put a score out there. You've got to back it up with the report.
Yeah, I guess that kind of comes to, the second question from Kate then as well, in terms of whether those reports will be available in a central location for access like EPDs. Yeah, I guess with the inclusion of metrics like the MCI in EPDs, we're still going through that process of them becoming a more central component. At the moment, they're entirely optional, but we are seeing a lot more dialogue in terms of the inclusion of circularity metrics as a more standardized component of EPDs. And I guess what goes along with that is that additional scrutiny in terms of how that MCI was calculated and the verification of those. I guess the part of the challenge with EPDs more generally is identifying which ones do actually already include the MCI. We know that the infra-build ones do, but there's no easy way at the moment to search within EPDs to identify those that do include those. But that additional level of scrutiny, I think, is something that we'll see emerge over the next few years. The next question we have is from Merrin in terms of how this effort really is impacting on projects that you're bidding for. Do you see yourself being more likely to win projects because you have the MCI and the ISC points? I think they're saying, being new to the industry sector, what are the key drivers for this effort compared to organisations not moving forward towards a more circular economy?
Yeah, happy to try and have a crack at that. I think ultimately these are driven by the clients that are paying for the infrastructure that we build, and also the specifications that the clients mandate. And there are some fairly innovative products that are still under review with specifiers. And then there's other, government agencies and authorities that are happy to embrace new materials and undertake trials and the like. So yeah, I think. But if you zoom out and look at the trend, then there is a slow increasing requirement for circular materials within the bounds of the specification. So and I think slowly we see the openness of specifiers change as well to more trials and embracing new materials and sustainable materials. So yeah, I think it will move in the right direction, and we will see an increase over time. Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah, you mentioned specifications there. Perhaps a follow-on question for you and Steve. Are you seeing any challenges to increasing the circularity of product as a result of things like specifications? Are there any sort of perceived barriers that are kind of emerging that you may need to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, Steve, you've got plenty of lived examples of this, but it is challenging, and these specifications are fairly rigid and fixed for a reason, and that they're important reasons, like the safety of road users and etc. So you can't just change specifications. But in my experience, you have to work with the specifiers, and you have to be aligned on your objectives and what you're trying to achieve, and you have to be open to failure and be able to fail safely. And that's the only way we're going to change. And it really does require collaboration, and it needs to, I guess, come from the top of those organizations that create the specifications and mandate them, that they have to want to change and embrace it and facilitate that. And I've certainly seen that in the concrete space, and we have seen change in the asphalt space. Is it fast enough as what we'd like? Probably not. And there's probably still plenty of challenges there. But yeah, Steve, I'll let you give your view on it.
Yeah, thanks, James. I'd just like to cite a case study, which let's use the M80 freeway upgrade for a moment. And, the CPB contractors and Downer's role in that, together with Ecologic, Major Road Projects Victoria, Victorian Department of Transport, there was a concerted effort to tweak the specification to enable the use of Conifeld, including Tonoplast, in that project. And that effort came from largely Ecologic, who are part of the Victorian government, and their job is to get more recycled content into infrastructure projects like the Big Build. Now, I can say that if Tonoplast did not improve the performance of asphalt, it doesn't matter how circular or how sexy the story is, we would not get a run at all. So this is as much about the innovation that creates better quality engineering solutions, as opposed to going circular because it seems right. But it does seem right, and I'm passionate about the circular economy. And there's another driver here, and that's circular procurement, because Reconifeld is used in a lot of council roads as well. And the procurement people from within council driving the change. They realise they've got the power in their hands to help us transition to a circular economy. So, Merrin, I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but indirectly, I hope there's some assistance there.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point you raised there, Steve, in terms of being able to focus on higher quality products. And really driving circularity and circular economy outcomes through higher quality products and more performant products. For me as a materials engineer, that's one of the most exciting aspects of the circular economy is how do we draw on it to enable better solutions overall.
And Jim, in the road space, there is a trend towards performance-based specs over prescriptive specs.
Yeah, and exactly. And by using these types of circularity metrics as part of that, it kind of opens the door to innovation and ways of delivering circularity that exist beyond just the recycled content. Great. Well, I can see we're drawing to the end of the 45 minutes that we've allocated for this session. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Ben, James, and Steve for their participation in the session. It's been a really fun project to be involved in from my own perspective. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks to our speakers.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks all.
Bye, everybody.
We have many more webinar replays on a whole host of sustainability topics. You can check them out on our website and our YouTube channel.